Story 1. One of my first posts on here was about a demanding woman insisting I vacate my power wheelchair to let her son have a turn, then becoming enraged when I refused. I'd only encountered her once since that incident, which I hoped would have been my last. Unfortunately, that was not the case. The excessively entitled woman strikes again. I'm a C4-5 incomplete quadriplegic, and although I have use of my upper body, I still rely on my power wheelchair for mobility around town. I recently received a new power wheelchair, and I'm still adjusting to it. Although it looks slightly different from my old one, it's still a magnet for entitled individuals. This incident occurred a few days ago when I was downtown doing some shopping. As I was leaving the mall, I saw the entitled woman and her son 12 years old walking in. I wanted to turn and go the other way, but she'd already spotted me. In hindsight, I should have stayed in the mall and waited for her to lose sight of me. But at that moment, I just wanted to get as far away from her as possible. So I exited the mall, hoping that the woman wouldn't follow me. But I wouldn't be telling this story if that were the end of it. There's a discount clothing shop just outside of the mall which I'd planned to visit, so that's where I went. I was in there for a few minutes when I got the feeling that someone was watching me, so I turned to see the woman and her son near the entrance with her glaring at me. When I looked at her, she immediately looked away, pretending that she was shopping. I headed to the plus-size section, hoping that she'd lose sight of me, but in retrospect, that was a bad idea. I call her the excessively entitled woman for a reason. When I reached the plus-size section, I naively thought I was safe, but oh no, dear readers, it had only just begun. I started looking through the selection on the racks, when not long after, I got that same feeling that I was being watched. I looked around and saw the woman at the end of the aisle, staring at me, but when she saw me notice her, she looked away. Then came a strange game of cat and mouse. I went to another aisle, and she followed me. I went back the other way, and she followed me. To avoid causing a scene, I left the store, hoping to outpace her. Unfortunately, I was not that lucky. As I left the store and was going down the block, I got that same feeling as before, so I turned around, and wouldn't you know it? There she was. What in the world is wrong with you, lady? Why are you following me? Excuse me, I'm not following you. Okay then, I said, going in the opposite direction to call her bluff. Guess what? The woman followed me. I could hear her coming up close behind me, so I stopped short, causing her to run straight into the back of my power chair. The sounds that followed were very satisfying, as she hit her knee hard into the bar at the back of my chair, hit her belly directly into a hook near the top where a headrest can be placed, and almost fell in an attempt to correct her balance. What is wrong with you? You could have killed me. That wouldn't have happened if you weren't following me. Now, what do you want? After muttering incoherent slurs in anger and pain from getting front-ended by the back of my chair, she exclaimed, You insolent little. Get out of that wheelchair now, before I call the police on you for assault. I replied, Really, lady? How about you take a look above your head? I pointed to the closed-circuit television camera directly outside the store that I stopped in front of. That will show you following me, as will the one inside the store we were in before, and the mall you followed me out of. Please, ma'am, call the police. I dare you. The woman fell dead silent. I continued, Better yet, how about I call the police and press charges on you for harassment? Throughout this entire encounter, her son was trailing behind her with his tail between his legs, a look of embarrassment and shame on his face for what his mother was doing. The woman still kept her mouth shut. I took out my phone to take a picture of her face. This picture is time-stamped with my location. If I ever see you again, you will leave me alone, or I will show this to the police, who will be more than happy to review the cameras. The woman just stared at me like a deer caught in the headlights, her mouth doing a brilliant goldfish impression. I left to continue my shopping. I haven't seen her since then, but I hope she took my warning seriously. I didn't want to take things further because that would probably get the Department of Community Services involved, Australia's version of Child Protective Services. But if anything else happens, I'll be sure to post it. Thanks for reading. Story 2. In late summer 2019, I was invited to work as an assistant tournament director at a small, annual chess tournament held entirely for charity. I had played in the tournament in 2017 and 2018, but with few high-rated players intending to participate. I decided to make my donation to the cause and help run the event instead. This was a junior tournament, meaning every player was a child or teenager. I was 16 at the time, but the rest of the tournament staff were all adults. I also had some experience as an assistant tournament director at a local club. The organizers made the exact decision that causes far too many problems in competitive chess. They allowed spectators in the tournament hall. Anyone familiar with competitive chess knows that talking between two players is strictly forbidden, and any chatting between players and spectators is a cardinal sin. I've seen spectators ejected for quietly murmuring among themselves as they should be. Chess is a silent game, and spectators have no right to violate the rules that the players must abide by. The tournament was split into two sections, the advanced section and the beginners section. Based on rating, every chess player has a rating based on their performances. The first time I noticed the demanding woman involved in this story was when she was registering her son for the tournament. When informed that his rating suggested he would be best suited to play in the beginners section, chess tournaments usually allow you to play in sections above your rating, but not below, she nearly threw a fit. "My son is not some novice. He will play in the advanced section," she exclaimed, then turned away and grumbled something about how rude the suggestion was. The tournament director was perhaps one of the most helpful and polite people I've ever met in the chess world. A true inspiration, by the way. So the woman's son was signed up for the advanced section. The director was much more experienced than I was, and while players in the advanced section were expected to be very aware of the rules, such an expectation was not held for the beginners section. For that reason, directing the beginners section would be much more challenging. With each section in one of two rooms and two tournament directors, I was assigned to the advanced room, and the demanding woman with it. I am a stickler for rules in chess, so I watched the games and the spectators closely. It had already been made clear that I had the authority to settle any disputes and issue penalties as necessary: warning, loss of clock time, or forfeiture in extreme cases. Ejection of players would require consultation with the chief tournament director. Round 1 began, and I observed the games. The demanding woman's son, an advanced player, started the game by moving with two hands. "This is a significant violation. You must move and press your clock with the same hand." So I paused his clock, declared the foul, issued a warning, and then let the game continue. The woman was already visibly irritated from the spectators seating across the room. Literally one move later, I had to deduct 5 minutes from the son's total 30 for doing the same thing I had warned him about one move before. Then again, this time for 10 minutes, after about 2 minutes. If he did it again, now with 15 of his 30 minutes deducted, he would be forfeited. I made that very clear, and he finally understood. Somehow, the woman managed to hold her tongue this long, but then she started talking to her son in the middle of the game, in another language. This was wrong on so many levels. Even if she had been speaking English and I could understand whether what she was saying was innocent or not, it would still be wrong. Her talking at all was against the rules. I had to assume the worst, not knowing what she said, and approached her. "Ma'am, you can't speak to your son during the game. That's against the rules. Realistically, he could get in trouble for that. This is your warning. If you talk to him again, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the tournament hall." "I don't want to punish your son for your actions," I explained. "I was just telling him to wipe his nose." "What is your problem?" she retorted. "Ma'am, that's not acceptable to do during a rated chess game." "You can tell him after the game," I replied. "You know, it really feels like you're targeting my son," she accused. "I haven't spotted improper play from any other players. The exact same action will be taken if I do," I assured her. "There is no way my son is playing improperly," she insisted. "I'm not going to argue with you about it right now. There are 8 games in this section, and I need to focus on all of them," I explained. "Okay then," she replied smugly. Another minute later, the woman started talking to her son again, and I returned to her. "I told you before, you are not allowed to be talking to your son during the game," I reminded her. "Okay." And she challenged. "Please make your way out of the tournament room now. There are snacks and drinks just outside, and your son will update you on the result of his match when he finishes it," I instructed. "What?" she exclaimed. "Please leave the tournament room," I repeated. "You have no authority to tell me to do that," she protested. Then go and speak to the chief tournament director or the organizer, I suggested. Okay, we'll see what they think about your ethics, she threatened. I returned to my duties. I had already been good friends with the chief tournament director for several years and had worked with him before. I knew this woman thought, oh, it's my word against a teenager, and that she was going to get her way. But really it was her word against mine, and my word was very well trusted for good reasons. None of us had seen this woman before this tournament that I could recall, and she hadn't made a good first impression. The demanding woman did not return to the tournament room. Story 3. This incident occurred a couple of weeks before the whole coronavirus situation, and let me tell you, I was furious with this entitled mother the moment she came near my brother. Here's the cast. Entitled mother demanding woman. Her innocent child. My brother. My dad. Employee. Myself. My dad, my brother who is severely autistic, and I went to this indoor play center. Just to add, my brother is nonverbal and has the mental capacity of a 2-year-old, even though he's 10. We had been coming to this particular play center for years and never had an issue with anyone until the demanding woman stepped in. So, my brother was playing by a slide in a play area when an innocent child came near him, getting ready to go down the slide. My brother loves trying to play with other kids, so he went to go down the slide with her. Just to add, this was the type of slide with multiple lanes for kids to slide down all at once. Anyway, my brother and this child came down the slide and landed on the mats at the bottom. This is where the issue first began. As the two of them went to stand up, my brother swayed to the side, knocking into the child, which resulted in both of them falling to the floor. The child and my brother were perfectly fine after the whole thing. Not a single tear was shed, and the two of them went along with their playing. My dad and I were sitting at a table in the little cafe part of the play center, drinking our beverages when we heard a woman begin to screech. Enter the demanding woman. "Who do you think you are? You hurt my baby," she screamed into my brother's face. My brother had no idea what was going on, so he tried to move away from her. The woman grabbed hold of his arm. "I'm talking to you. You need to say sorry to my baby. You hurt her when you pushed her. Apologize now." At this point, my dad had started making his way over and pulled the woman's arm off my brother. "What do you think you're doing?" my dad asked. "Is this your child? He hurt my child when he pushed her, and now she's upset." "Get him to apologize," the woman demanded. Her innocent child was happily running around and ignoring the situation. My dad noticed this and said, "Excuse me, there is nothing wrong with your child. And just to let you know, if you ever put your hands on my son again, I will make you regret it. Can't you see that he has special needs?" The woman, clearly ignoring this, replied, "I don't care what's wrong with him. He should apologize to my child now. You shouldn't even bring someone like him here if he's going to hurt kids like my baby." My dad looked about ready to lose his temper at this point. "Who do you think you are?" he exclaimed. Next thing we knew, an employee came over to the two of them and separated them, warning the entitled mother to stay away from my dad and brother. Once she got the entitled mother away, she came over to my dad. "Sir, what that woman did is technically assault on a minor. Therefore, we had to call the police to deal with this. I hope you're all right with this," the employee explained. My dad handed my brother over to me so I could try and calm him. "Yes, thank you. I can't believe someone would put their hands on a child like that," he replied. Within a few minutes, the police had arrived at the play center, and my dad and the demanding woman were taken into a room to be questioned by the police. Multiple people at the play center verified what my dad said about the woman, and my dad was asked whether or not he wanted to press charges. In the end, he decided not to because if this woman were convicted, she'd probably have her child taken away from her and risk possible jail time. The play center gave her a lifelong ban, and she now has a mark on her record saying that she was accused of assault of a minor. The demanding woman should consider herself lucky that she got off this time, but if she continues like this in the future, I hope she faces appropriate consequences.